All right, guys, I'm gonna get started here. I got a long presentation for you guys today. I'm gonna try to get through it as fast as possible, but I think it's probably my most powerful presentation and webinar we've done over the last month. We've done them every Monday, and I'm gonna try to pull together all of the presentations that we've done throughout the month into this presentation. And so I think this is what separates us from everybody else. I think this is what has gotten me into the NHL and kept me there for so long. I think that it comes naturally to me. It's what I've done forever. So I'm gonna get started here. But so today's all about planning, preparing, and performing. And I kind of use that as my template for everything I do. First, I'm going to go through who I am for people on the call that have no clue who I am. And then I'm going to go through the results and the current state of goaltending and then how we've changed the narrative. So let's get started. So first of all, you see a picture of my family. This will become really important at the end of the presentation, but I played in the USHL. I was an MVP of the USHL. I was an All-American in college, and then I played professionally for 10 years. When I retired, I went back to school to do my master's degree and then started coaching. I coached college and then juniors and then made it the jump to the NHL. Been married to my beautiful wife and my best friend for the last 20 years. She's amazing, plays a big role in all of this. So again, 45 years. I have never played any other position except goalie. And I'm going to show you that in a second. But we've had the goalie schools for 25 years and obviously former professional. And those are the teams that I worked with in the NHL. So this is me as a 5-year-old kid in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and showing you guys that I've been a goalie my whole life. This is me playing AAA hockey at Bantam. And this is where the story begins of planning, preparing, and performing. And, as you guys, goalies, everybody's goalies on this call, you guys will notice that I don't have any equipment that matches. I'm playing for a Chicago Blackhawks team with used goalie pads from my neighbor. And then I traded away everything, all video games, all toys to buy this glove and blocker from one of my teammates' older brother. And it was my first glove with a cheater on it. So I was so excited. I thought it was the coolest glove in the world. I even wrote in marker my number so that everybody knew. So um, this is the beginning of if you want something bad enough, what are you willing to do? And you got to have a plan and then you have to prepare. And so that's what we're going to go through today. The goalie schools are no different. Over the years, we started in 2000 and it was only week-long summer camps. We had them in Winnipeg, we had them in Sioux City, Iowa, we had them in Bemidji, Minnesota, and then it turned into overnight camps. We had 30 week-long camps around the US, and then we prepared, we analyzed, we innovated, and we came up with overnight camps. That turned into then doing elite camps. That turned into doing prospects camps to try to help goalies make it to junior hockey. We saw a really big problem in junior hockey where goalies go to a training camp for a North American League team, let's say, and there'd be 42 goalies there, and you play 3 games, and then the coaches are trying to pick 2 goalies out of that 42. And there was so many things that they didn't even know about the goalies. Were you put on a good team? Were you put on a bad team? Was there bad bounces? They didn't get to see anything about you. And so we started these prospects camps to evaluate, your strength, your flexibility, your personality, your work ethic in order to help kids get a better shake at juniors. And then that turned into Unlock. And then our newest product and our newest thing is the Goalie Academy. And we'll talk about that later. But at the end of the day, I can tell you whoever I am and I can tell you everything I've done. But at the end of the day, people only care about results. So I tried to make sure I put as many results in here as possible as we go through the presentation. But 10 years in the last 10 years in the NHL, I had top 10 goalie every year. Three NHL All-Stars, Martin Jones, Freddie Anderson, and Jack Campbell. These are some of the goalies. When I coached college hockey, I coached 1 year of college hockey as a graduate assistant, and I coached Cam Talbot. I coached 1 year of high school hockey in Minnesota, and I coached Jake Ottinger. And then I coached 6 years of juniors, and we had goalie of the year 6 years in a row. These are some of the girl goalies that we've coached over the years, some of the really high profile ones. But Mackenzie Brook is the coach for Team USA, and she's been with us since she was about 9 years old, 10 years old. She used to drive from Atlanta over to Huntsville, Alabama, where I was coaching college, and that's where it all started. Alexa Berg played at North Dakota and Mankato. Jessica played at Bemidji. Kennedy played at Wisconsin, won a national championship. And then Jenna Ilchuk at the University of Manitoba. So if we're going to build a great goalie, and if I was to sit in a room with all you guys and we were going to talk about how we would build a great goalie, at some point, this is what we would come up with, right? Everybody knows you got to have good vision. You got to be able to read the game tactically. You got to be able to react technically. We'd go over video. We'd go over strength and flexibility. Nurturing environment is something that people don't talk about, but we talked about this last week. We talked about this on the first week. We talked about these two the week after. And so I'm trying to bring them all together for you guys today. But these would be some of the things that the six major parts of putting together a goaltender. And so the first part is to plan, right? You got to prepare, right? You got to prepare and know what you're doing before you can put a plan together for a goalie, right? And so here's an example, right? In the NHL, this is an actual goal that went in against Dallas in the playoffs 3 years ago. We made it to the Western Conference semifinal. We lost in Game 7 to Dallas, but this is what goalies are contending with in the NHL. As you guys can see, that's 8 of the 10 guys on the ice in one straight line, and Grubauer trying to find the puck, right? So we've identified the issue that we need to work on. Then it's coming up with innovative ways of improving those things, right? So we were the first guys, we invented these screen dummies. All the teams in the NHL use them now. I think there's 20 out of 32 teams that use them. We also these cones, these light up cones, because as goaltenders, we used to always say things like go. But in the game, nothing is audible. It's all visual, right? And it's how fast your eyes could see it and then how fast your brain can take that information and then react, right? Which is then brings us into sports vision. That was one of our first innovations. We started this about 16 years ago, and our first three goalies were Pekka Rinne, Braden Holtby, and Devin Dubnyk. And that's kind of what put us on the map of coaching NHL goalies. All three of them went on to be Vezina candidates, which was really cool. So again, results, right? So I tried to bring results to all these things. So these are some of the results. Martin Jones was an all-star this year. Curtis McElhinney set the record for the highest save percentage in history of the Toronto Maple Leafs with 935. Helped us get to the playoffs that year. Freddie Anderson, he set numerous records when we were in Toronto. I think I got a plaque as like 7 different records that he set, like fastest European goalie to 200 wins, most wins in a season, highest save percentage over 40 games, most games played 4 years in a row. He played over 65 games. And then Jack Campbell, who came to us, who had never been a number one goalie, and in his first year with us became a number one goalie, made it to the NHL All-Star, and then obviously has struggled since. So here's a little video for you guys on the mental side, and I'm just trying to recap what we did in the previous weeks.
What does it take to do the impossible? What does it take to achieve paradigm shifting, never seen before breakthroughs? As I mentioned earlier, it is technically defined as an optimal state of consciousness, one where we feel our best and we perform our best, is that flow is definable, that flow is universal. When we end up in the deep now, when time gets shut down in a flow state, anxiety disappears. Your stress hormones flood out of your system. Move into flow. We take in more information per second. So data acquisition goes up. We pay more attention to that information. So salience goes up. We find faster connections between that incoming information and older ideas. So pattern recognition goes up. What we now know is that flow states are hackable. But the first thing you need to know is the most obvious. Flow follows focus. It can only show up when all of our attention is focused in the right here, the right now. I have to explain this number, 3 minutes, 59.4 seconds. So that is the amount of time it took Roger Bannister to run the world's first 4-minute mile. But Roger Bannister runs the first 4-minute mile. And then a month later, somebody breaks his record. A couple months later, somebody else breaks his record. In fact, within 10 years, teenagers had broken that record. So you got to ask yourself, how is that possible? This is known to researchers as the Bannister effect. And what it really is an extremely tight coupling between the mind and the body, right? You have to believe you are capable of achieving the impossible before you can actually achieve the impossible.
So this is part of the planning part of things, right? We all know that we need to be strong mentally. But and if I was to speak to any of the goalies and I said, "Hey, what are you thinking about when you play your best game?" And the answer is universal. Nothing. You're just playing. You're just stopping the puck, right? You're just trying to stop the puck when you play your best game. When you do that, you're in flow state. Okay. And so for a long time, for years and years, I would ask goalies, "Hey, how do you get into flow state?" And they would say they had no idea. If I made the first save of the game, I'd start getting in a rhythm and then I'd feel good about myself. But the reality is then I would say to them, "Well, what happens if the first shot of the game goes off your defenseman's butt and goes in? Or what if it hits a skate and goes in? What if it hits, what if it's a screen and you never had a chance to see it and it goes in? What happens if it's a backdoor tap in?" Well, are you just going to quit? When you do that, you're putting all your attention on external forces, things that you have no control over. And then you're giving away your power, right? So this is all part of the planning process. How we know that we need to strengthen it. So now we're doing research on how can we get into those flow states all the time automatically, right? And so here's EDSO. So EDSO is endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. These are the chemicals that are in your stomach and they shoot up through your spine and they go into your brain and they help you get into flow state. And those chemicals are only built in your stomach if you eat properly. So they link back to nutrition. They link back to sleep, right? So that's why all of these things create a plan. And that's what we're talking about today is doing the research and then having a plan and then creating the outcomes, right? And so in endorphins, you only get if you work hard. If you don't work hard in practice, you don't get the endorphins. You don't get that feeling, that runner's high of putting in the effort, right? Dopamine is setting goals. And this is an important one. I would say that it's one of the ones that people miss a lot of, even in the NHL. If I ask goalies, what is your goal? It's always to win the Stanley Cup, which is normal, right? And then it's to win a Vezina trophy, which is normal. And I ask younger goalies, what do you want to accomplish? Well, I want to play junior hockey and then I want to play Division 1 hockey. Those are all amazing goals and they're wonderful goals and you should shoot for those goals. The problem with those goals is that they're all a long ways away. How are you going to get yourself in flow state today so that you get the results that then is going to equal getting to juniors, getting to college, getting to pro, right? And so it's setting smaller goals for every day to help you get into that flow state. Serotonin is the leadership drug, leading the life that you want to lead, right? Being the person that you want to be. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And oxytocin, the reason it's red is because our last talk was on family, and oxytocin is the family drug. It's the feeling you get when you're surrounded by good people that are supporting you and helping you to achieve your goals. That's why when you hear teams that have success, they're always talking about, oh, such great guys and buddies. And that's a tough one for goalies sometimes because what do coaches always do? Oh, you go sit in the corner over here. Oh, you go practice down at this end. Oh, you're kind of weird. And they're constantly telling you these things to put you on an island. And so our goal is to become part of the team. And there's specific exercises and drills that we do that go through that, right? And then this is another big one, constantly creating happiness. Okay. Not letting things build up, clearing the mechanism, letting things go, someone to talk to. So these were all points that we talked about the other day on the mental side of feeling part of a community. Okay. Oh, so as we go through these things, it's all about routine, right? So it's creating a plan and then executing the plan and then getting the results, right? Plan, prepare, perform. So routine, and I'm going to go through some of these things with you guys, but knowing you did the work. I don't know about you guys, but I used to go to math class and the teacher would sit at the front of the board and she would do all the math equations and I'd walk out after the class and I'd be like, I have no clue what we just learned right now, right? Because you weren't doing the work. You were just listening to that teacher and you had no clue what she was talking about. But when you started doing the homework and trying to figure it out yourself, that's how you learned it. And so you have to know you did the work. All right. Being in the present moment, building confidence, controlling the controllables. And again, you see having fun. This is one that as goalies get older, they're constantly being beat down year after year. You're beat down with goals, you're beat down with different coaches, you're beat down with players, you're beat down with expectations of trying to be exceptional, trying to move up the ladder. And maybe one year you get cut and you get sent down to, say, double A or single A. And are you going to have the grit and the love to keep moving forward? And that always comes down to having fun. And you got to find a way to have fun. And in the NHL, that's probably one of the biggest ones I work on. So exercises. So here's a cool one for you guys. An exercise that I do with the goalies all the time. Some days I'll bring them a little one. So this one is imagine if I gave you guys $86,400 a day for the rest of your life. The rest of your life, I gave you $86,400. However, you have to spend every single penny of it every day because it doesn't carry over to the next day. What would you do? You'd spend it. You'd spend every single penny of it, right? Well, guess what? You have 86,400 seconds in a day. How are you going to use them? Are you going to waste your time and then you never get it back? So this would be an exercise on being in the present moment and using that day and every minute of it, every second of it to be the person that you want to become, right? This is an app I created in the NHL and it was just to do the routine every day, gratitude, journaling, positive self-talk, all these exercises to strengthen your mental muscle. And then this would be an example of a practice plan. Every morning, it's a positive morning routine on how to get yourself in the right mindset to have a great day. Then you go down to here and you get into the positive mindset in practice, right? How to let things go. Maybe one day that's your goal. No matter what, the goal goes in, whether it's a good goal, a bad goal, as soon as it's by me, I don't give a shit. It's done. I can't get it back, right? So there's no use thinking about it. Move on. But if you're playing in a big game and you lose the game and you let in a couple crappy goals, it's really hard to let it go. But it's easier and easier if you practice. If you never practice and all of a sudden you have a bad game and you haven't learned how to just let it go, then all of a sudden it goes into the next game and into the next game. And then it makes you miserable at school, makes you miserable with your teammates, makes you miserable with your parents, and it just snowballs, right? So, how do we get the best out of our goalies? How do we best present to our goaltenders? So, for us, the way we do things is we do personality assessments with all our goalies. Okay. And there's no right or wrong answer. There's no one personality that makes a better goalie than another. This is actually Jack Campbell's personality. He's a really high I, and a D personality. So he's real gung ho, inspiring, energetic. Okay. But Freddie Anderson is a really high C. So that means that Freddie won't do a drill unless he knows exactly why we're doing it, what's the score, where's the defenseman. He has to understand everything and then he'll perform. Whereas Jack Campbell, if I told him to jump on one leg 3 times and spin around, he'd be like, okay, let's do it. So it just helps to understand the goalies. At the same time, it's a building trust between the goalie and the goalie coach that the coach is trying to understand you as opposed to saying, well, this is how I coach and you have to figure me out. So with a goalie like Freddie Anderson, this would be stuff that we would do. So this is every single goal Freddie let in a year. And it gives you every single statistic of where, how, and I keep track of all this in an Excel spreadsheet. It's a thing that I built. But at the end of the day, how do we know what to work on? And I'll give you guys an example. I see it over and over again, but people go to a lesson. And I have yet to see a goalie go to a lesson with a practice plan in his hand where he's telling the goalie coach what he wants to work on or what he needs to work on. And it's not just based on, oh, I just feel like working on glove today, or I had let in a gold glove side, so I want to work on it this week. That doesn't make sense. All you're doing is reinforcing that you let in a gold glove side and you're replaying it in your head. This is based on facts of where you let in goals, how you let them in. And I don't even deal with this. I usually don't even show the goalies this. This is just my information so that I can create the best goaltenders possible. What I show the goalies is this. And I keep a record of every single save. This is Joey Decord, but every single save they make. So every time they make a glove save, a blocker save, side to side, reverse, dead angle shot, screen saves, shootouts, stick saves, I put them all in here. And the reason I do that is whenever they're struggling, instead of showing them their goals against, I'll show them making the save 100 times and show them that they're the same goalie they were the day before when they made the save, that there's nothing wrong with them. It's just, it's forget about it, right? Again, we're going back to the mental side of helping people forget about it. So, why do goalies leave the path, right? The path would be on your way to where you want to get to, right? And a lot of times this is lacking community. And we talked about this last week, but sometimes they'll quit for other sports because they feel more part of it, right? I've seen that a lot where, especially here where I live, a lot of kids will be like, well, I want to go play lacrosse and be a forward in lacrosse and feel more part of the team. Sometimes it's outside of sports, right? They just find a gang of people, whether they're good people or bad people, but they find a gang of people that they feel belonging to, right? Friends go off to university. A lot of older kids, this is what happens to them is once they get to juniors and all their friends are going to university. And this happened with my son, he had to go to juniors and all his friends are off in college and some of his friends are graduating university and my son's playing, he's going in as a sophomore in Division 1 college hockey at Nebraska Omaha, and he's got friends of his that are graduating, right? And there's a sense of, man, I'm falling behind and not being part of the group, right? And then the last one is the financial trade-off, right? Is it worth it anymore? And so there's no deep trusted family culture. So if we look at Maslow, and some of this is might be a little over people's heads on this call, but at the end of the day, you guys are going to learn one day in psychology Maslow's hierarchy of need. And this is everybody in the world. This isn't goalies. This is just everyday people, everybody. And self-actualization would be like achieving your goal, right? But if you look at the base, the one you need the most is security, friendship, intimacy, family, a sense of connection, right? And so that's what we try to create is that sense of connection and safety that you have this is on Google. I Googled it a couple weeks ago here, loving community in sports. And these are the definitions, right? Psychological safety when teams operate like a close-knit family. And we talked about that a little bit ago. Athletes are more willing to take creative risks, learn from failure, push to their physical limits without fear of judgment. And judgment's a big one when you're young. Shared purpose, right? A strong, united community fosters culture where individual success is celebrated as a team, right? And then mental well-being, being part of a supportive sports community decreases stress, boosts mental health, and prevents burnout, right? All reasons to be part of a group. And so some of the problems that I see with the path, a lot of goalies are an afterthought, right? The coach just says, "Hey, you go do your thing, and we're going to do our thing." Or coaches, I see this one a lot, right? Uh, parents torn in 10 different directions. You got to go to work. You got to take the kids to practice. Then you got to take them to goalie lessons on top of it. And there's only so much time in the day, right? And then coaches, I hear this one all the time. I know nothing about goalies. Right? It's almost like the very first thing they declare as soon as you make the team, they come up to you and they're like, I don't know anything about goaltending. Right away, you feel like on an island, right? And then the next one they always say is goalies are weird. And so again, you're constantly being put on an island, right? Alone. And then the reality of it is if you are in a team where you have a goalie coach for practice, you get 10 minutes from the top of the circle down or 15 minutes. Well, if you do 5 minutes of skating and warming up, if you do 5 minutes of shooting and warming up, you actually only got to learn for 5 minutes. So who's learning in 5 minutes, right? If this is a typical elite goaltender's path, right? A couple lessons a week, summer camps, hotels, meals, goalie equipment, all adds up pretty quick, right? But what are we missing here then? We just spoke about, okay? All these things are great. However, you're missing the meat. You're missing the mental strengthening, right? You're missing a sports vision program. You're limited video breakdown. Now you can go out and get these things, but then it's another lesson, it's another coach, it's another person to do all these things, right? And then there's no actual development plan and then no deep family culture. It's a transaction. You come to a lesson and then you leave. There's no family bond built. It's a transactional thing, right? And so what we created to support our goalies in their dreams. So here's Mackenzie. Mackenzie's the one I told you she coached Team USA, won the World Championships last year. She's the coach again this year. She coaches at Mankato. Here's Kennedy at Wisconsin, and she's actually coaching now too. So what we created is we created a goalie academy. It's limited to 16 goalies. You get to work with me one-on-one, and it's in Stillwater, Minnesota. Goalies arrive on a Sunday and they stay with us and my family. And this is where I said at the beginning of the presentation that where my family plays a big role. My wife obviously is one of my best friends and she plays a big role. That's why I wanted to introduce you guys all to my family. My son's not usually home in the winter, but and then parents can come and join their goalies. And then we can get groups of 4 to 8 goalies and they come and stay at our house. And so then you have 24 access to NHL goalie. You can do Zoom calls with me anytime you want. I also set up Zoom calls with all the NHL goalies, current and ex, current goalie coaches, ex goalie coaches, current head coaches, ex head coaches, and no more being on an island, right? And for your parents, it's a one-stop shop. We're located in Stillwater, Minnesota, one of the coolest towns. It's so beautiful. We've lived here for the last 12 years and we have no reason to be here. My wife is from Scotland and I'm from Canada, but we chose to come here. We have no friends or family here. We just absolutely love it. It's gorgeous. Every day we have access to this arena, lumberyard. We have the entire arena, and in behind here is a gym, full gym, synthetic ice to work on shooting and stick handling. And then on this side of the wall is a turf area. So we do all the off ice training. So in one spot we can do everything. And then when goalies go home, they send me video. They get access to unlock goaltending, which is like a super library. It's like 400 hours of on ice drills, off ice drills, vision training, mentals training. And then you can call me anytime. And so part of the opportunity that we did is we created a 501(c)(3), and that's for kids that are on here that don't know what that is. It's a nonprofit company so that if you get sponsorship, the companies can write it off as a donation, 100% tax deduction. And there's personalized jerseys with 9 patches to cover the costs. I'll show it to you. Actually, I got it here. It just came in the other day, so it's pretty cool. And that's the actual jersey. We got some of our sponsors on it. Um, True's our major sponsor. They're going to provide goalie equipment for the goalies. And so that's kind of what it would look like. And then what happens is goalies go on to sign up and they register on Path to the Crease. They go out and get donations. I put 9 patches. If a company donates $2,000, then you can, or $100 or $5,000, doesn't matter. They donate it and they put it to the goalie's name, and then it takes off their tuition. So if a goalie gets all the sponsors on the jersey, they could come to the academy for an entire year for $2,000. Works out to be $4 an hour. Pretty amazing. Um, so that the way it works, I already explained that. And then the admissions process is doing a Zoom call with goalies and their families and my wife and I, so that everybody gets to know each other. And the reality is we're opening our home to goalies, and we're trying to create lifelong relationships and friends. We're a big part of the goalies' lives, and we're trying to create that community, and we don't want bad people. So I'll play you guys a little testimonial. And excuse the video. The video's crappy. I'm a goalie coach, not a video professional. So I just mashed up all the testimonials, but it's the message that I want you guys to hear, okay?
Hi, my name is Alexa Berg, and I was a Division III, Division I collegiate goalie. He also encouraged me to attend the Northern Educate Academy, and I'm very grateful that he did. As well as we are all still very connected from goalie to goalie, and we are a part of big parts of people's lives. Well, again, without Steve and his camps and his programs that he creates, I don't think I would have had the career that I had. And yeah, I'm forever grateful. That's all I can say.
Hi, my name is Dakota Sianyuk, and I skated with Steve Briere at our goalie academy for 2 to 3 hours a day, every day for 4 years. I've never met a coach that's as passionate as Steve Briere is. Steve always emphasized that we weren't just a team and we weren't just hockey goalies. We were a family. The only coach to this day that I've had that I can honestly say backs up his claim that we're a family.
Hi, my name is Dominic Wasik. I've known Steve for about 10 years now. I am currently playing for the Air Force Academy, and I would not be where I am today without Steve, especially my last year junior with his mentorship program. I was trying to build confidence, and he was able to support me by being there if I ever wanted to give him a call after a bad game. I would not be where I am today or getting this great education without Steve and his mentorship. If there is any goalies that are looking to level up their game, Steve Briere is genuine and he will support you through that process. He will help you develop as a goaltender and also as a human being.
So Steve Briere, where do I start? My life probably wouldn't have turned out the way it has if I'd never met Steve. And then as a person, how much he cares for each of the goalies he works for. Like I think in the summers when we're traveling from city to city, the amount of time he'd spend on a phone helping a kid get to a AAA tryout, or someone who's been cut from a team and was looking for a spot, or the amount of junior and college coaches who would look to Steve for advice kind of showed me how well respected he was. And with the Maple Leafs and the Kraken and the NHL, he'd always shoot me a message asking how things were, and if I needed any advice, he was always there. He was always a phone call away or a text away. Yeah, someone that I'm very, very thankful to have worked with, and thankful to count him as a friend now that I'm old enough.
Hi, everyone here. My name is Vladimir Kramer. I am former KHL goalie. I want to say a huge thank you to my big friend and great goalie coach, Steve Briere, for his contribution and the development of my career. we still keep in touch. And I remember my work with Stevie with the warmth.
I don't know if he's calling me fat there. He's big Coach Briere, but hopefully he's not calling me fat. I'll have to give him a call later. But anyways, just some testimonials of kids that have come to our academy, and just to show the relationships of how they become part of our family. And Alexa Berg is getting married this summer and invited us to her wedding and stuff. And so just wanted to give that example. I want to thank everybody for your time today. And if anybody is interested in the academy or any of the summer programs or any of the mentorship programs, any of those things, you can sign up for a Zoom, one-on-one Zoom call. This is our QR code to sign up on Calendly